We go. Okay, here we are, day 3 of long-term care week. We are so excited to be here on Valentine's. I have my heart on. I have my heart here as my logo. I don't think I could fit in any better on Valentine's Day. My name is Deneen Diamond. I'm the lead for the Center of Excellence for Health. We have 2 incredible experts with us today from NBCC. So happy to have NBCC as a partner, and they're going to be talking about the role of a personal support worker. And they're going to be talking about the role of a personal support worker, but also what is needed to become that employee and what does that look like. Without further ado, I'm just going to do a little quick bio of our beautiful experts. And here we go. Crystal Petrie is a licensed practitioner nurse who instructs at New Brunswick Community College and works casually in the pediatric department in the St. John Regional Hospital. She took her training through NBCC in St. Andrews and began nursing in 2015. She has worked in all areas of nursing and loves to share some of her knowledge and skills with others through her teaching. Thank you, Crystal. Stephanie. Stephanie is a registered nurse who instructs at the New Brunswick Community College. She took her training at St. Lawrence College in Cornwall, Ontario, and began nursing in 1993. Starting in emergency, eventually going into community, then settling for a while with VON as the Cancer Support Network Coordinator until she moved to New Brunswick in 2006, where she started working for NBCC. Wow, all over the map. I love it. In teaching the PSW and PN, as PSW and PN, she has found her passion. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our beautiful experts, Crystal and Stephanie.
Hey.
Hi.
Luckily, you have me who's on campus teaching today, and you have Crystal who's actually working out in the trenches at the hospital with students today. So you've got best of both worlds with us today. So I'll let Crystal go first.
Are we sharing a screen here, Stephanie?
Yeah, we are. We're sharing the screen. So this is the opening screen. Can you see it at all?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
So just so this is just our exploratory interview on how to become a personal support worker. So we're just gonna kind of find out what that typical day would look like becoming a personal support worker in the long-term care experience, as well as different education training that's required. How we get there today, learn different advice from people who are working in that long-term care world, and where the future could possibly take you as a personal support worker.
So as you saw, there's me and Crystal when we're not in our work gear, when we're actually more relaxed and enjoying life. Yeah, it must feel like that today for sure. And here I am sitting in front of a nice window getting some sun. So yeah, that's the two of us. And I'm going to just go on to the next slide and say our NBCC has 6 campuses, and all 6 campuses teach the PSW, or the Personal Support Worker Program. We all have an intake that starts in September, like all other college programs or university programs. But 3 of our campuses also start a program in January as well, and that's St. John, Fredericton, and Moncton. So some students say, I want to wait back and make a bit of extra more money before I go off to school. So that's the opportunity to stay back for a few more months to make a little bit more money or get settled in a new community before you start school. So that's really great. And the reason we've also done that is because we are so short PSWs in New Brunswick to work in long-term care and in hospitals and acute care, that we've added more programs to try and meet that provincial need.
So first off, we're going to go over kind of about us, personal skills that fall onto a personal support worker, kind of what a day in the life might look like, because there's many different areas that personal support workers can be a part of, different training and education that might be required of you, some essential skills and experience to have, contact, parting words, and then kind of our follow-up activities, how this little presentation is going to go.
Awesome. So I I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal stuff and my personal interests, because sometimes we don't know what we want to be when we grow up, but by knowing that people have similar personal interests, it makes us think, oh, maybe I could do that too. And that's some things that I like. So I love to spend my time outside and work with my family and my pets. I love to work in the garden. I have a daughter who's still at home. I love my animals. I have a dog named Tilly, and I have 2 cats, one of which is still a kitten. And I love to do crafts, and I have found my new passion. I've learned the ancient art of rug hooking. Some of you might have seen some of that with your grandparents. Well, I'm a young person, and I like it. I think I am creative, and I find it really helps me at NBC for teaching some of the harder things to my students. I can try and relate it to crafty things and other things like that. And I'm kind of still, I guess, a newbie to New Brunswick, because I only moved here in 2006.
Yeah, and I'm Crystal, and I like to think I look younger than I am, but I do have 4 kids. They do range from 4 years to 18. One's in university, finishing her first year. So we love to travel, exploring the world, diehard Disney fan. Kind of like to think it's what keeps me young at heart and helps me survive in this career sometimes. But I have been told that I do go over the top with creativity, which definitely helps in my pediatric side of things. That's kind of where my forte is always been, is peds, because I had started working in the daycare setting and then moved on to here. But it does help me with my teaching and those kind of things when it comes to finding all ways for my students to learn, because not everybody's good at hands-on, not everybody's good at visual learning. So trying to incorporate everything for those students. I do like detail with my creativity. I've been told I have a little bit of OCD, but that's okay too. But that's good to have that precision to detail with this kind of career, because you are caring for people's loved ones, and that's very important. But I do really love wound care as well as pediatrics, so that precision to detail definitely helps in those areas.
And she's my little Energizer bunny. She's always got lots of energy.
Yes, I've been told I'm like a squirrel.
Uh, so, more about me. I have been teaching at NBCC since 2006. I've helped in the beginning of in earlier years days when we really looked at PSW as a career for itself. I helped when we did that curriculum renewal, and looking to see how it's similar to PN or practical nurse, and following that together. I love to teach classes that allow students to see and feel what their patients are feeling. I like doing hands-on stuff like that to get us in touch with our touchy-feely sides at times. And I really have taken a real hold in this program and in my life on stuff with dementia. Dementia has been a really strong influence in my life and a strong impact in my life, and I'm very passionate to advocate for patients with dementia.
A little bit more about me. So I started instructing at the college about a little over 2 years ago, but I do still work casually in the pediatrics world of things. I've taken some additional training to be able to run codes with peds patients and do different things in that department. Our floor houses our own oncology suite, our own ICU, day procedure, day surgery, all kinds of things housed right within our unit, which is really neat. And also, I floated everywhere in the hospital for 5 years, and that's where I definitely got a lot of my skills and took some additional training beyond the competencies of what you can learn in school. So that's one kind of neat thing as well, as you can further advance your skills too. I did take my training in the beautiful St. Andrews with the lovely Stephanie Ruxtall. She was one of my instructors. And I did begin nursing in 2015 because my program was one of those ones that started in January. So I actually graduated in December. And yeah, I've worked everywhere. Everywhere's I've worked and can answer a wealth of questions. Hopefully, I have the knowledge to answer any kind of questions, but I have been everywhere. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So when we look at your career portfolio, if you're going to be going into practical support network, some of the skills you'll need to have is being comfortable, especially because this is long-term care week, is you need to be able to talk to older people and not to shy away from getting to know them or asking them questions or learning about their life, their past lives. You need to be able to build relationships with people. And that's a crucial role, especially when we look at how old our population is getting. You might have heard in other classes them talk about baby boomers. Well, our population is getting older and they are vulnerable and the ones that need our help the most and need support the most. And when I look back, I don't think I would have become an RN personally. I think I would have become a PSW because I like supporting people more or less where they are and less work on the paperwork. The paperwork thing of RN stuff kind of isn't my thing. I like being hands-on at the bedside, talking to people and making them feel good. Career pathway, many PSW students, right, work in long-term care facilities, whether it's in the nursing home or special care home or even in their homes. However, you can also work in aged residences or communities. And PSW doesn't just necessarily mean LTC. I mean, we say, because this is LTC week or long-term care week, that's a career that's in the long-term care. But PSW can work in hospital, acute care settings. They work in every aspect of health. So it's not just geared simply to long-term care.
Yes, and just to kind of follow up what Stephanie was just saying, I actually, here on the floor that I'm on today, we have 5 personal support workers working. So there was a time when there was more long-term care. They kind of had gotten rid of, for lack of better terms, PSWs within the home care setting on some of the more acute units. And acute, I mean like acutely ill. They're just got diagnosed with something. You see them more in those long-term care floors, but now they're starting to bring them back in those more acute settings, and allowing those PSWs to work to their full scopes, which is wonderful because we really need those support, that foundation. I always call PSWs the foundation of the healthcare, and we just keep moving up from there, and we all work together as one big team. So very important. A title doesn't mean you're beneath anybody else. We're all working together collaboratively. So there are some kind of specific considerations. Somebody who's going into healthcare, they have to have that sincere desire to work with, care for somebody. Been told it takes a special kind of person to do what we do. And it's true. You can't be somebody who's just here and your heart's not in it. Your heart needs to be in it. You need to treat that individual with the utmost respect and those kind of things. So you need to have a desire to want to help somebody, to want to care for that person and to see that person as a whole person, not just what they're in the hospital or what they're in that long-term care for. You see them as a whole person. Being in good health, physical fitness, and stamina are essential. It is tough on the body, I'm not going to lie to you. So being in that good health and having good stamina behind you is definitely going to help you succeed in this career, and have good observational skills, organization, and being flexible to meet the ongoing needs of the long-term care because our population's aging. So that's where personal support workers are really going to come in and help that healthcare need, and build that solid foundation for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to have a bit of an Energizer bunny in you a little bit.
Like me.
Like her, yeah. So the educational training, actually, these are 2 of our PSW current students that are in our program today, and they give a little video there. But the personal support worker program is a 1-year certificate program. Hi, Mr. Abbott. It's a 1-year certificate program. Most of the courses are transferable to practical nurse if you want to explore or challenge yourself to be a licensed practical nurse.
I'm just going to welcome Mr. Abbott. Mr. Abbott didn't have the link. I'm so sorry you didn't get that, Mr. Abbott. Can we see your beautiful students? Awesome. Okay. Mr. Abbott, we're just in the middle of the session. We're just going to keep going, okay? Awesome. Okay, keep going there, girls. You're doing great.
So Most of the courses are transferable to practical nurse. So generally, for the most part, the PSWs and the practical nurses for the first 2 terms take all their courses together. It's only when we get into what we call the spring term or the after April term that their courses separate apart, and the PSWs continue into the pathway that they're going in, and the PN practical nurse students continue in their pathway. And the other part with being a personal support worker is you need to stay current. You'll need to yearly get your CPR. You might learn new techniques on restraints or wound care or all kinds of different things, and those are really important. So this is a little video clip. It's not very long, that was shared, that I took of the students just last week when I wanted to find out what their thoughts were on PSW. It is quiet at first. He's just taking a blood pressure. Yes, PSWs can take blood pressures.
So maybe Stephanie, you can just walk us through what they're speaking about. The volume's
Okay,
not
can't
on.
hear it there. Sorry, there. The video's there. Sorry, continue. You'll hear it now.
Say that they are going to get a PSW program because they like elderly, they like to work with elderly, they like to take care of them. Well, I would say I would like this too, but on the other hand, it has a good future. Like if you do PSW, you have option to do it LPN program, and then you can go RN and more other options.
So what's the most?
All of these things together made me to take this program.
Great answer. What is the most satisfying part about being a PSW?
Well, I'm still studying, so the most satisfying part of studying PSW, it's that like got to know what is happening inside us, which is more satisfying and making me more curious, like what else is happening between, like, inside us, in the body, in the human body.
Oh, that's a great answer. Thank you for sharing your input, Lucky. So as you heard him say, and I'm sorry, I forgot to turn the mic on the screen on. But initially he was taking her blood pressure, and he told her blood pressure was great, and that and then he told her the number, and so they learn all the vital signs. How to take vital signs. They learn how to do basic wound care in the PSW program. And so he was sharing that there's a lot of options when you're a PSW for different work environments. The scope of practice that way is unsurmountable. And then he said that what he's enjoying about the program the most is that he's getting to know about his own body, gets to know how the body works better and why things are happen to people the way they happen. Understanding the disease processes, he's finding very satisfying. Oh, sorry, there.
So there are some. Oh,
that was my fault.
There are some requirements, obviously, if you're going into any kind of post-secondary education, you got to have certain things, or you may or may not be accepted. So some requirements for the PSW program is having your diploma or adult high school diploma, like your GED, things like that. Or you can have high school equivalency or some essential skills achievement pathway, and have a post-secondary entry with that kind of a high school diploma. So there's many different stages or different ways of getting that level of education that is required, whichever one works the best for you, as long as those requirements met. Completion of immunization and medical form. So something that's really important is before you're able to come into that hospital setting or any kind of a long-term care setting, you have to have certain immunizations and things in order to be able to do that. So prior to even applying, I personally recommend getting those things done, because then it's already done, you have it. A medical form up to date with those immunizations, You need to have proof of valid CPR with the level of HCP as well as AED certification, because obviously, if goodness forbid, your patient decides to not do so well, you need to be able to know how to save them. So that's something that's really big that you need to have with the PSW program, as well as obviously you need to have a clear criminal record check because you are caring for someone's loved one. So you need to make sure you're in the clear for that. Some different career possibilities. There is a massive demand for anyone healthcare based, but especially for PSWs, as those long-term care facilities are overflowing. They have such a need for workers because that aging population, they're busting at the seams. So they definitely need lots of PSWs. There's not going to be any lack of work for any of you that are interested in going into it. So basically, graduates can work in hospitals, like we were saying, nursing homes, group homes, different home care and community agencies. I've seen PSWs in many, many, many different places. So the opportunities are endless. So you can just figure out what works for you and where you would like to go with that different career possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So a typical day, that was an interesting one because I put myself in the mindset of what it would look like if I was a PSW walking in to work for the day. And so I'd be walking into my long-term care facility. I would probably be responsible for the care of 6 or 8 of the residents there. And so that means everything from helping them wash up in the morning, getting dressed, making sure they have their breakfast in front of them, or supporting them and helping them eat their breakfast, helping them potentially with toileting. And then after breakfast, you would maybe take them to activities or participate with them in activities. And that's how your day would go on. And then you'd support with lunch, and then maybe an afternoon nap, toileting. That's a typical day in a long-term care facility. Or if you were working in somebody's home, you might be going home to home, and your task would be from home to home, helping people with the tasks that they can't do for themselves, whether it would mean I don't know, everything from washing their hair to helping them get dressed, or helping them with their daily tasks of living, of laundry, a bit of house cleaning and things like that. Do you have anything else to add to that, Crystal?
In the home or in the hospital setting, it can sometimes be a little bit more than that. Sometimes you could be taking blood pressures. Sometimes you could be taking blood sugar checks. It just really depends on the facility and what their policies are and whether they're letting you work to that full scope or not. Sorry about that. The door just keeps closing in the background. But yeah, it just kind of depends floor to floor base and what they're letting those the PCAs and PSWs do. Sometimes you're working as like an observational care. So you'll be responsible for like a 4-bed ward where you're observing and watching and taking care of the people in that ward, or a specific room. I know in my floor in pediatrics, a lot of times those personal support workers are doing observational care when it comes to some of our mental health children who might need some extra watching. So you're there to help and assist in those situations.
And to add to the vital signs, the dressings as well, simple dressings of cleaning wounds and putting a new dressing on top are part of the scope as well for the PSW. So I had forgotten emptying Foley catheters, all that stuff. So there are skills. It's not just basic needs. There are skills as well for the PSW. So in conclusion, I'm going to show you a little video, and then Crystal and I will sign off with a lovely message to you. But this video was done a few years ago with our coordinating instructor, or our go-to person. And it actually, I'm just going to slide it over here and make it bigger. Okay.
As most people are aware, New Brunswick is an aging province. Our population is aging. And because of the new advances in medications and technology and diagnostics, people are living longer and longer. So because of that, people are going to eventually require care of some sort, whether that's care in a long-term care facility or in their own home. And that's where the personal support worker comes in. So the courses that are offered in the program are all geared towards the knowledge and skills that a personal support worker would require to go to work in long-term care facilities, acute care facilities, or home care.
I worked in construction, and I didn't like the work, and I wanted to work more directly with people. So that's what kind of guided me towards this. My brother's a doctor, my mom was a PSW. So after talking to them, I thought I'd give it a try. And I mean, getting here, I love it. I love the instructors, working with people every day. Doing our clinical was, I think, an amazing experience, working with vulnerable people that need us. It was eye-opening, and it really made me want to go farther. This work humbles you, and you realize, and you really, at the end of the day, you feel like you're making a difference.
I originally started as a pharmacy tech. I was a pharmacy technician here in town for close to 27 years. I love integrating back and forth with people. I always wonder what their journey would be like after they left with their medications, what kind of life they had at home, and were they taking the medications, and how could I make their day better? I thought, there's other things I want to do in my life too. Like, I'm 51. I can go back to school. I'm not too old. When I first started, I was amazed at how much we covered.
The mannequins, I mean, they have pulses, heart rates, coughing, breathing problems. It's pretty state-of-the-art stuff.
NBCC has been really helpful teaching me the skills that I needed to learn to get into it. They really enjoy seeing men coming into the program. So when you get out in the field, there might be lots of residents at a nursing home who would prefer to have it male.
So the education we give is top quality. We have excellent instructors across the campuses in New Brunswick that all care about the students, care about their learning, care about them being successful.
So that kind of summarized basically everything we kind of talked about, but you got to see our lovely faces to share the information. Hopefully, if you guys in that class back there that are kind of watching have any questions, I know Crystal and I would love to answer questions because we'd love to see you at our campus next year. But if you love what you do for a living, then you'll never work a day in your life. That was a quote that was done by somebody else that I truly believe. I'm excited to go to work every day because I get to help train people who will maybe one day be looking after me in long-term care. So that to me is, at 56, my motivation has changed a little bit of why I teach. I teach because I love it, but I also teach because I want people to be able to look after me when I get older with care and compassion. So thank you for listening today on my behalf, and on to Crystal.
Yeah, and I just love sharing any kind of knowledge that I have. I'm always learning new things. I'm here on clinical, and I have had to ask many times to up my skills, and I've been doing this for a very long time. So I just love trying to share those skills with my students, as well as learning together new things. And everybody's always learning, and there's no stupid question, and there's no owning up and knowing and wanting to learn more is always a good skill to have.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. And I know Mr. Abbott's class is listening, and we announced that you were the host class when we started. I didn't realize you didn't have the link, but you are here now. So we're really happy you're here. We also have 47 online students that are listening into the recording. So thank you so much. I really loved that last quote. If you love what you do for a living, then you never work a day in your life. And I know when I was a teacher, that is something that I always spoke to my students about. And I always said, when Mrs. Diamond gets out of the shower and doesn't want to go to work, she's going to find something else to do, because you have to love what you do, and you have to be able to throw your heart into it, especially when you're caring for people. And I do feel the personal support worker role really does look at the holistic view of health for all of the individuals that you care for. So thank you from my bottom of my heart for what you do, one. And two, it's not selfish, Stephanie. I think we all need to be worried about who's going to be looking after us. And I know that some of the folks that are listening to this class certainly will be part of that, hopefully personal support workers, but also the healthcare and social care careers. So I have lots of questions, but I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Abbott's class and see if they have any questions. You certainly can come to the camera and ask a question, or you can just put it in the chat, whatever you feel is comfortable.
Okay, my apologies to the presenters for arriving late, as well as Deneen, so my apologies for that. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Perfect. My first question for me is, what is the academic program now for someone going through college to do the PSW program? Could you speak to that first, please?
Absolutely. Actually, for the PSW, oops, I went too far this time. For the PSW, the academic requirements are not as strenuous as for the practical nurse program. So they just need to have their high school diploma or equivalent GED. So they don't need any specific sciences or math for the PSW program. So that is one bonus, because sometimes people aren't strong, or don't feel strong in those subjects going into college. The other part of that is just to put into the loop, we have had older students come back from like Lillian did in that video, from having been out in the workforce, that don't have that biology that they need for the practical nurse program. And you don't need it for PSW, but if you're very successful in your anatomy and physiology class, then you don't have to, you can transfer into the practical nurse program, because you will have met that science requirement while taking your PSW. Is there anything, that is, I guess, the two big things.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. One more question for me, because I don't want to monopolize this. Have you had students in high school that maybe function as a PSW, although not be a PSW? I've heard of that before with students working in long-term care homes as summer students. I'm just wondering how that works in terms of how they're designated. Are they just more like aides, or how does that work, Stephanie?
I think every facility is different. There are some facilities that are so short-staffed for PSWs that students who have done co-ops have been hired in the summer as seed students to work in the nursing home. But most of the time they are not left independent because they don't have the training. They're a support staff. So they're there to support the staff that are working, but they do not work in a capacity of independence like someone with a PSW. I think that's what you were asking, Mr. Abbott.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just see if any students in my class have questions with respect to what you folks do as PSWs. Does anybody have any questions at all for our guest speakers? You guys are usually pretty keen. Does anybody have a question? Yes, Sadie. Question was, does it require college or university? I believe it's college. Is that right, Stephanie?
It's college, yes. It's a one-year college certificate.
Yeah. Is there a licensure exam that somebody has to write?
No, there is not a licensing exam at this point. Is it something that is looked at for potential future? Possibly, but I've been teaching it since 2006, and we're still, since it's kind of still a new career, it's a new title, it's in its infancy. They don't have the masses of workers to create their own association yet. They haven't had enough year upon year graduates. So right now they're being nurtured and taken care of under the Practical Nurse Association. The LPN Association is taking them under their wing to help them with that. To be able to have that licensing body like that, even if there's not an exam, also gives you support if you were to do something and someone said, well, we didn't tell you to do that, you're not credible to do that. The association is there to say, yes, she has the training, she has the background, that she was capable to do that, and will stand behind them to support them, which is really, really important in a healthcare field, especially.
Okay. Is your profession required to do any professional learning at all on an annual basis? I've heard of that before for other occupations
Absolutely.
out here. Okay.
Absolutely. There's some professional learning that's done within the facility that they're hired, but they are always accountable to maintain their CPR specifically yearly. That is, even myself at 56, been a nurse for 32 years, I yearly need to go and take a 6-hour research course on CPR to keep my status valid for CPR. And they might take on other courses in wherever they work that will require the same kind of coursing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Steph. Let me just go
You're
back to
welcome.
and see if they have questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Don't be shy. Yes, go ahead, Emma. Yeah, the question, Stephanie, was, are PSWs ever in charge or responsible for conducting, let's say, medical assessments? Would they be required to take the lead on that, or is it more of a support role?
That it depends on what capacity they are working and where they're working, but they do learn basic assessment skills. So if they are, say, even in the hospital and they're working in observational capacity, so they have those 4 patients that they are supervising or watching out for. And a lot of times the observational capacity is because the patient could be of danger to themselves, falling out of bed or doing something, getting up and going to the bathroom without support. Sometimes it's those kinds of capacities, but if they're responsible to do the morning care, they will be assessing. Everybody who's in healthcare is constantly assessing. They'll be saying, "Oh, that bruise on the elbow wasn't there this morning. Oh, I need to tell the nurse that because I've noticed this and she says ouch to her elbow, that maybe there's something wrong with her elbow and I need to report that up." That's an example of maybe in an acute care facility, but in the long-term care facility, if you're responsible for bathing patients in the morning and you help roll your patient over to wash their back and you see they've got the old-fashioned word, a bed sore starting on their buttocks where it's really red and it looks like the skin wants to break down. You're going to look at it, you're going to assess it a bit, and then you're going to chart it and report it off to somebody to get the doctor more involved. So we're assessing when was the last time they had a bowel movement? Oh, it's been 3 days. Maybe we need to start something. So those are all assessment skills that you will learn, that a nurse knows. Everybody on that chain is responsible for. We're all responsible for what we do and what we see. And that's why we put here in the skills that one of the that's the typical day. Keen skills, I don't know where I put it there in the PowerPoint, is to have observational skills. You need to be a bit of a Jacques Cousteau out there looking at people and making sure you're picking up the changes. Oh, they didn't eat their breakfast today. Oh, they're saying they're not hungry for lunch today. Oh, well, we need to look at this. What could be going on here?
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Emma.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead, Sophie. Yeah, so the question was, since it's a 1-year program, do you do clinical at some point in the first year, and at what point do you do that, Stephanie?
Great question. So you do actually 3 clinicals. The first clinical is just before Christmas. You go for 2 weeks into a long-term care facility and use the skills you've learned up until then in the long-term care facility. Your second clinical could be at a hospital with an instructor for 2 weeks, and then you have a 3-week practicum where you're put into an environment where you will work as a student under somebody to perfect your skills, so that when those 3 weeks are done and you graduate, you can walk right into a job doing what you have been trained to do. So basically, it works out to being 3, 2, and 2, 7 weeks total of clinical.
Oh, that's really good. Okay,
Yeah.
any other questions? And myself again, but does
I
anybody
see
have
that there are boys in the room, and that's why I personally picked a boy to do that interview with, because I want to everybody to know that there are more and more boys going into PSW, and that is really, really needed, extremely needed for men to be in that field. It's not just a girl field anymore.
Stephanie, here's a question for you, for me. Do you find that there's, from your experience, that PSWs enjoy their line of work because they're not required to do certain skill sets that perhaps an RN or an LPN would be required to do?
Absolutely. I actually said that in my beginning bio, that I think today, if I were to go back to school, I don't know if I would become a registered nurse. I might just become a PSW, because I've always preferred the hands-on stuff over the paperwork. One of the first tasks I got as an RN when I got my first job was I was the med nurse. So all I did all day was went up and down the hall passing out medication. And I hated it because I really didn't get to say, hey, Mr. Smith, how are you feeling today? Did that Tylenol I gave you, did it actually help your headache? I didn't have time. I was just giving meds. And so for me, if I were knowing myself as well as I do now, I might just become a PSW, because I like the hands-on getting to know my patients and enjoying them and learning about them.
Okay. What's the shift schedule like for a PSW? Do they work 12s or 8s in a long-term care home? I'm curious on that.
It depends on the facility. It depends on the home. Some homes have 4 hours, some even have 4-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts. It all depends on, they're all there. They do all of the different ones. Yeah, and the rotations are different. It all depends on the facility and how they organize their staff. Hospitals are different. Home care is different, right? Some people, I prefer night shifts, so I would be the one doing all the night shifts because I like night shifts. But some people prefer day shifts. Some people prefer 3/12s and be off. It all depends on what you want. You can find a job with the shift work that you want. Basically, there's that much need and demand out there.
I understand the shortage because I follow the news is quite bad for PSWs in the province right now.
Yeah.
Is the provincial government putting any incentives in with respect to, let's say, return of service agreements, or any discussions taking place in that regard that you're aware of, Stephanie?
I think there's always discussions taking place. I think that that's somewhere where we're at right now, again, where that's probably right at the forefront of discussions. And I think we're gonna see changes coming because there is such, like you said, such a shortage. I mean, with looking, if you follow healthcare like your students should, not this past weekend, the weekend before, the provincial government had to step in and help relocate patients from the regional in St. John to long-term care facilities all over the province to debunk the over patient population at the regional. It was clogged so full of patients that they couldn't move. So some were sent home too early, and needed PSWs in the home to look after them at home because they were discharged earlier than really they should have been. Some were put as far away from their home just to get them placed out into community so that they could free up some beds for some people in ER that needed to be moved, that were in critical condition.
Okay, perfect. Back to my class here, Stephanie. Oh, I'm sorry, Denise, did you want to weigh in with the questions?
No, I'm just being mindful of time, and I always it's supposed to be a 45-minute recording. Do you have more questions, Mr. Abbott?
Let's take a look here at my thoughts. Does anybody else have any other questions at all? Right inside of me, I always have questions.
I know, me too.
Does anybody have any questions about PSW or the role that they have in the healthcare system? I'm just curious, Stephanie, I just have a question, more questions for you.
Yeah, that's great.
With respect to influx, like it's a 1-year program.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's offered by all the campus across the NBCC network. Can you give me an idea Is it a popular program with a wait list? How many students do they admit into a program every year? Could you speak to that for me, please?
Absolutely. So it is a 1-year program or a 10-month program. It's offered at all campuses in September. Enrollment sizes differ depending on the campuses, and it differs for a couple reasons. It differs because of how big the campuses are, but it differs based on access to clinical settings. So here in St. Andrews, we admit 16 every September to the PSW program. There's not usually a whole big waiting list for it. Practical nurse there is, but PSW there generally in the past hasn't been. But the bigger campuses can take in 24, some take in even more than that. But because of such a high need, we have now offer at St. John, Fredericton, and Moncton, we offer another intake of PSWs in January. So if some students maybe say, well, I want to go and take my program in St. John, which is going to cost me rent that I can't make enough money to cover the rent for 10 months over the summer, so I might stay home and work through till the end of Christmas. So when I take a seat in January, I have saved enough money to go to school. Some people do that, or it just allows for more flexibility and more ability to access the program. Bigger campuses like St. John and Fredericton and Moncton do have maybe bigger waiting lists for this program. For PSW specifically, I'm not sure. I know for the PN program, where St. Andrews might have like a 30-person waiting list. I'm making this up. St. John has a 400-person waiting list. So because the centers are different in sizes, so students that might be interested in this field might have to look out of their closest center to find an area that has a waiting list or a non-waiting list that will meet their need to be able to go to school when they're ready to go to school.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you think are some of the biggest obstacles, given the fact that we need as many PSWs as we need? What are some obstacles that have to be overcome in order to improve recruitment and retention of PSWs in this province?
That's a really great question, Mr. Abbott. For me, one of the biggest obstacles for PSW specifically is basically falls back for me on the high schools. Not to diss the schools, but there's been in the past such a great push on everybody pushing their students to go to university and be a registered nurse, and how much validation there is for that higher academic standing, that it negates the fact that their college is a really great potential for school, and there are such a demand in it. I think that we have to, as a community, as a province, recenter what we value, and that not everybody should be going to university, that college is equally as valid and equally as good. Just an example of that for an example is I have one student of mine who graduated the year before Crystal did. She started off as a PSW. She finished her certificate as a PSW, came back the following year and did her second year of PN, because she got accepted into the program to come back and do her second year of PN. She graduated. She worked 1 year as a practical nurse, went back to school at the university, and only needed to do 2 years and 1 semester at UNB, and she became a Bachelor of Nurse. She worked 1 year as a Bachelor of Nurse, and she is now finishing up her schooling, and she's going to be a nurse practitioner. So, I mean, the options are endless. PSW as a career in its own is extremely fulfilling. But for some people, it could be just a stepping stone. I'm not sure I want to be a nurse. I'm not sure I could handle blood and guts and puke. I don't know if I could wipe somebody's bum. All those things. You come to school for a year, you get a certificate out of it, which gives you better than minimum wage pay to go out and work, much better than minimum wage. And you've got a certificate, so you can go out and work, but it also gets your feet dipped in the water to see, is healthcare really for me? Is it really something I want to do? I've had practical nurse students who graduated and said, yeah, I don't want the bedside stuff, but I really liked x-ray. And then they go on and take an x-ray tech certificate or diploma. I mean, it's reusable and applicable in anything healthcare after. So
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I have a former student coming in tomorrow, and she's currently in the SUN program. So she did LPN through NBCC St. Andrews, and she's currently employed in Zen Surge at the regional, and she's also a part-time student at UNB to fulfill her BN to get her RN credential. I think it's really great that it's a stepping stone to get into the PSW program. And then there's an articulation to up to the LPN, and then if you want to take another jump, then up from there. So
absolutely,
I completely agree with you on that. Stephanie, I didn't quite hear at the beginning because we were late arriving. What facility do you work at? Are you in the Fundy region or somewhere else in the province? Or
I am in the Fundy region. I actually live in St. Andrews and teach out of St. Andrews. Absolutely, yes, I do. But I'm a maritimer by move, not by birth. And I will be a maritimer for the rest of my life. I don't ever intend to move to any of those central provinces where I may have come from originally. This is where I was meant to be, and I will remain here for the rest of my days. But my first degree, I did do a psych degree out of St. Avex first in psychology. Which is not a transferable degree for a career. So I had to go back to school to find something that was going to get me the job I wanted. And I took back then in 90, you could do a 3-year associate degree through a community college. And that's where I got my registered nursing is through a community college in Ontario. I'm very pleased that I did that. Very pleased I took the long way I did. I moved from Ontario in 2006, and I don't intend on ever moving back. I love it here. I love the care. I love the way the healthcare system is in New Brunswick.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I think we're good. Does anybody have any other questions at all for Stephanie about PSW? All right. I know that our time is almost wrapped up, so I found this presentation to be very rewarding and insightful. I appreciate you doing this, Stephanie, today for being given the opportunity to be the host class for this session. And I know our time is almost up, so I'll hand things back over to you, Deneen. Okay.
Thank you,
Mr.
class.
Abbott.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott.
Thank you so much, everybody, for signing in. I know Kim's here as well with her students. So thank you, Mr. Abbott. And I know you were a little bit late, but certainly I'm happy that the questions were answered. And Stephanie, you're so passionate about your job, and you've really exposed me and to students about what goes into a personal support worker's day and what does it look like. But what you really touched me with was the piece about a stepping stone. And I come from a family of all medical professionals, and I know that there's stepping stones within the medical field and the health field and the social health field. So if this is something that your students are interested in, or that you are interested in right now, and you think maybe that's something I want to do, please reach out to NBC campuses, reach out to me. Mr. Abbott has my contact, and certainly we have experts right at our fingertips that are ready to share their story and share their passion. And this is how you may not need to do a full co-op with somebody, but really figure out what it is that you're passionate about. Because if you are passionate about what you're doing, it does not feel like work. So thank you so much to Stephanie and Crystal. Crystal had to go back into the field to work because she's working in the trenches. Mr. Abbott and his students, thank you so much for being a host class. I did put the rest of the schedule in the chat, and I also put a survey for the teachers that are signed in. If you can just take a minute to do the survey and let us know what you thought about the presentation, that would be lovely and help us for our our next presentations, and hopefully I will see you for the rest of the week. So signing off from the Center of Excellence for Health, thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy
Thanks, Crystal.
Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Hey.
Thank you.